Welcome to the program. I'm Mark Imperial. This segment's being brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books done to educate consumers, grow their practices, and to leave a legacy. I'm doing a series of spotlights on remarkable business intermediaries from across the country. And joining me on this segment is Emily Herbert. She's with myorlandobusinessbroker.com. Emily, welcome to the program.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me today.
Emily, tell us a little bit about your work and specifically, who are the types of clients that you like to help?
So I am a business broker here in Orlando, and essentially what I do is facilitate the sale of existing businesses anywhere in the state of Florida. I take, the opportunity to sit with the business owner, evaluate their financials, and kind of give them an idea of the value of their business, and then market it and try to find them a buyer. That's the ultimate goal. We are. Forgot your other question.
Oh, just like specifically the types of, is there a specialty business type that you work with?
I was in the restaurant industry for a long time before I started doing this, about 20 years. So in the beginning, I really specialized in the restaurant business because I kind of knew it inside and out. But our company has sold everything that you could imagine: dry cleaner, laundromat, gym, construction company, you name it, Christmas tree farm, you name it, we sell it. So we kind of are all over the place. It's what we do. We specialize in selling any business, small, like $50,000 up to 20 million.
Right on. So for these folks that are selling, I'd imagine a lot of them, it may be the first time they're going through this process, so they have a lot of questions. What are the first kind of questions that you get and concerns when folks reach out to you wanting to sell?
I think the first question is always, how long is it going to take? And how long is it going to take is really tough, because some businesses are, a very easy sell. You put it on the market, you find a buyer immediately. And then some of them are a little more niche, so it takes a little bit longer to sell it. So it's really hard to give them a definitive answer as to how long it's going to take. And then the second question is always, how much is it worth? And, determining how much it's worth really depends on how well they took care of their books while they were in business, because ultimately people are going to pay for a business based on how much money it makes.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty complicated question right there. So.
Yeah.
Emily, so how about this pandemic? Let's speak about that for a moment, because the whole inspiration for this whole series has been the Great Resignation, and people leaving corporate America and wanting to go into business for themselves and perhaps buy a business is a great option. So have you seen the impact of that? Are more buyers in the market, and how is it affecting sellers?
We have right now, which is crazy. Normally we have more sellers than we have buyers, but right now I have more buyers than I have sellers, because first of all, Florida is, we didn't really shut down. Like, we kind of kept going down here. It wasn't like some other places in the country where it just got locked down. So everybody wants to move to Florida. A lot of people lost their jobs. They got a severance here, and they decided that rather than going to work for someone else again, they wanted to buy their own business. So it's been interesting, because I've had people that know exactly what they want. And then I have people call me that are like, I don't care what it is, as long as it makes money and I can continue to make money, I will figure it out. But I don't ever want to put myself in a situation where I have to wake up one day and not have a job anymore. So it's been really good for us.
In your field, is it typical it doesn't sound typical for somebody looking to buy a business to look up, hey, I need a business broker, like a real estate agent, or are they finding you through like an existing listing for another business that you might have? How do people find you?
So usually people get on BizBuySell or businessbrokers.com, and they start looking, to buy a business by themselves. And then they click on the link, and then they realize that, oh, I got to call this person. And so then they call, whoever the broker may be. And then they were like, oh, you're not the owner? And I'm like, oh, well, no, I represent the seller of the business. And so then they're like, I didn't even know that was a job. I didn't even know that was a thing. And I didn't even know it was a thing. I fell into this. I got really lucky and met one of the best brokers in the state, and he kind of brought me into the industry. But prior to this, I didn't know that you could hire someone to sell your business for you. I had no idea that was a thing. And so people are really shocked that that's just what you do all day long, sell businesses. But it is all day long.
And that's another, inspiration for doing this whole series, is just shedding more light on the whole field, because I know that's a kind of a less talked about subject. Let me ask you, Emily, from the seller's perspective again, with this Great Resignation, if folks have been considering selling their business but sitting on the fence about it, has this motivated them, because it seems to be a seller's market?
Oh, yeah. People really, we go out, and a lot of times if we have people that are looking for something specific, let's say you want to buy a laundromat, just give an example. We go to laundromats all over the place and find the owner and ask them if they want to sell. And they always are like, well, I never really thought about selling. And I'm like, well, there's people that want to buy it. And then they are like, oh, well, let's talk about it. Let's see how much it's worth. So, and then you tell them what people are paying for it. And they are like, oh, well, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Let's do it. Let's put it on the market and see what happens. So they're definitely, coming around. And a lot of other side of that is that people had a rough 2020, the restaurant industry, for example, it was tough for them. And so it was exhausting. And now they're like, I just want to get out of this and let somebody else take it over. I'm tired from the way 2020 went down, and I just want to, do something else. So it's been, but then there's other people that they were thriving in 2020, construction industry. And so they are like, oh, I'm going to covet this for a little bit longer, and I'm going to make a lot more money, and then I'll sell it later on.
So kind of linked to that with the lack of information or lots of misinformation out there. Do you find that sellers have any like myths or misconceptions or preconceived notions when it comes to selling a business that may not be quite correct?
So the biggest thing that I run into is that they think that the price of their business is going to be based on the gross sales of their business. So I did $1 million last year, so I should get $1 million for my business. Well, it doesn't work that way. People are going to pay for the business based on the money that they can take home at the end of the day. So it's really important, for the business owners to understand that keeping their financials in order and, doing it responsibly versus kind of doing it whatever it is, to make more money for them is not always the best way. But I think sometimes they just assume that, well, this person sold his business based on how much sales he did. Well, that's not how it works.
Gotcha. When you start working with a business owner that's looking to sell, what are like the biggest kind of mistakes or pitfalls that you find people doing or falling into that you can kind of warn people about?
I think that one of the things that happens is that they put it on the market and then they kind of quit trying so hard, because they are like, oh, I'm going to sell it, so they start backing off and putting in less time and doing less marketing and doing less advertising, when in reality, when we put you on the market, you need to be working harder. It needs to be continuing to grow, and it may be perfect right now, but you always want to be making it get bigger and bigger and better, because that's what makes the value in the business go up. So when you kind of step back and stop working on it, that's what really puts a damper on the price at the end of the day.
I could see that, and buyers can kind of sense it if things are slipping. That's like the curb appeal, if you will.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Emily, what inspired you to get into this field to begin with? How did you get started here?
So I was in the restaurant business for a very long time. I went through the sale of a couple different restaurants that I was the manager of, and I can remember what it was. The buyers would come in and tell everybody they were buying it before it was even sold, and it was kind of a transition where they didn't have a broker to do the job. So I relocated, and then I met Michael Shea, he's a huge broker here in Orlando. And I kind of started talking to him about what he did for a living. And I was like, oh my gosh, that would be so awesome, because I remember how hard it was on myself and our team, whenever they transitioned the business over. And it really made me feel like I could help, people in the business. Cause, when you work for somebody and then somebody new comes in, it's always scary. And you don't, so we do it in a way where it's almost seamless. We don't tell everybody that it's for sale. We don't let everybody know what's going on. Everything's done very confidentially. So when the transition happens, it's, everyone kind of learns together, but the staff already feels like the person that owned it before is comfortable with the buyer. So then they become comfortable with them. So then they don't all jump ship and leave. So it helps me. It makes me feel good about how it goes for them.
Before I ask you my last question, Emily, for somebody considering selling today and they just don't know where to start, or they don't know what to look for in a business intermediary or a broker, how do they choose a broker? What's the most important thing they look for, and what kind of advantages would a firm like yours have?
Well, Transworld is the #1 business brokerage in the world, and that's who I work with and who I work under. So they've been selling businesses for 40 plus years. We have business offices all over the world. We're an international business brokerage, so we can get buyers from everywhere. So I think it's important to find a brokerage that has some backing, that's been doing it for a long time, that has a good base of buyers to work with, versus trying to maybe go with one of the one-off, like fly by night on their own kind of people, because it really takes a village to do anything. And our village is huge. We have hundreds of brokers and we all work together as a team. So it's not like we're just, you give me your listing and I only work on it. I'm going to work with anybody, in my office and even in other offices to try to sell the business for you. But I think it's important to find somebody that has some good backing and. a
For
good
folks
reputation.
listening to us now that would love to speak with you if they're considering selling their business, or maybe somebody's looking for a business in the Orlando area or surrounding area, how can they find you, connect with you, and learn more?
So you can find me at myorlandobusinessbroker.com, or you can contact me on my cell phone, which is 352-246-2266. And I'm pretty much always available. It's glued to my hand.
This has been terrific. Emily, I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing with my audience today, and I wish you continued success for you and for all of your clients.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me today.
That was Emily Herbert. She's with myorlandobusinessbroker.com. And this segment's been brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books done and published to educate consumers, grow their practices, and to leave a legacy. That's all for now. I'm Mark Imperial, and thanks for joining me.